Welcome to Over the Line, where we challenge everything you've been told about health and wellness. We're here to shake things up for anyone over 40 who's ready to go beyond the basics. Join us as we dive into the radical side of fitness and mindset. We're talking about why we're not afraid to break the rules and how our own lives have been transformed. Ready or not, let's jump in. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Over the Line. I am Tina Hyatt, and this is my co-host, Guy Jones.
Hi there. So today we're going to be introducing our friend Peter Strange, who for almost 3 decades has built a reputation for transforming lives through an ability to quickly resolve both chronic and acute physical and emotional issues and facilitate improvement in performance across all areas of life. His uniquely intuitive and holistic approach has led him to develop the Reset Method, which stands for Realigning Emotions and Structure for Energetic Transformation, which encompasses both modern Western and traditional healing techniques, healing techniques, blended seamlessly to achieve energetic balance in the body and mind, thereby addressing pain from both a structural and emotional perspective. Prior to any sessions, Peter remotely assesses the client's energy as it relates to their structural and emotional alignment, thereby creating a bespoke treatment plan designed to provide a unique experience that will leave the client feeling lighter, more balanced, and more connected, and has been likened to pressing the reset button for your body-mind. Alongside treatment, Peter's clients are also empowered to make necessary changes in their own lives through a corrective exercise and holistic lifestyle coaching. And this powerful combination of treatment and the client's own active participation ensures that the perfect balance of optimal health can be both achieved and maintained. So hi, Peter. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Guy. Hi, Tina. Nice to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. So, Peter, will you just tell us a bit of your story and how you got into all of that?
Sure, yeah.
Great.
So I've really been thinking about this prior to coming on today. And it's actually quite interesting, like actually knowing that I was doing this podcast with you guys. It's made me kind of look back at my life again and really I think I actually have a greater understanding now of my own journey, which is really great. So I guess the best place to start, and please feel free to interject at any point because it's quite a long story. And you know, I certainly don't want to do all of the talking, but I guess the best place to start would be at the age of 13. So at the age of 13, I was a very keen sportsman. I would say sport was kind of the biggest focus in my life. I had dreams of becoming a footballer like many young boys. And also at that same time, which I can explain more kind of as we go through this, there were various challenges at home. My parents' relationship was breaking down, and it was quite a difficult time in many ways. And also as well, I was having problems at school in terms of I lost a lot of friends in a very short space of time. It's strange to think of it now, but there was a dispute over a girl that one of my friends liked. She liked me, and it just put me in a very lonely place. And I was always seeking to fit in and to be accepted. And my relationship with my dad was quite strained. He had various insecurities about his own kind of physicality and his ability to be a father. And I think, as all children subconsciously seek to do, I was trying to heal my dad. So what happened when I was 13, I was taking part in a school sports day. I was competing in the long jump. I was very good at long jumping. And I took my first jump, and as I landed, I realized that I'd done something to my knee. My knee collapsed underneath me. Within about an hour, it had swollen to twice its size. I had to quit the competition. I managed to finish second, even by virtue of that one jump. But basically, through my own healing journey, and actually much later, probably in my 30s, I came to the realization that I'd actually created this injury as a way of kind of leveling the playing field between me and my father, because my father had as I said, a lot of insecurities around his physicality. I was very good at sport. You know, he hadn't been particularly, and you know, I think he felt somewhat intimidated by that. You know, he would never play with me or come and watch me when I was representing the school and various teams that I played for. So I believe that I sustained this injury. I didn't realize this at the time, but it was as a way of healing my dad, as a way of getting his attention. He wasn't around that much, even though he was at home. You know, it wasn't a broken home at that point. And it worked to a certain degree. You know, he actually came to the school to pick me up, to take me to the hospital. That was the first time he'd ever been to the school. And yeah, it was a very difficult time. And as a result of that injury, in the treatment of that injury, it was discovered that I had an even more serious injury in my lower back. And throughout my teenage years, my 20s, my early 20s, I really struggled with chronic back pain. It really dominated my life. I wasn't able to reach the level in sports that I had previously. And I was really thinking about this earlier today, this idea that I was seeking to level the playing field, you know, between myself and my father. I also was doing the same thing at school. I was seeking to be accepted. I actually, you know, I was very high achieving at school. I was very intelligent, and I was always ahead of my classmates. And I deliberately dumbed myself down to kind of try and fit in. And in that period where I lost many of my peers as friends, I kind of became friends with the kids who had, you know, the most challenges. You know, I kind of found myself it more easy for me to associate with them. And this, if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of read a quote, because I think it's so relevant to this whole journey. It'll be so relevant to many of your listeners as well. It's the quote by Marianne Williamson, where she says, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine. And so as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. And as we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others." So that quote, to me, it's kind of, it tells the story of my life, and it's really kind of one of the main motivations behind what I do now, the work that I do now. So I don't know if there's anything that, you know, this raises any questions for you guys, but I'm happy to continue on the journey if you want me to.
Yeah, I just want to take a break. What I actually see is these emotional connection to our physical pains, right? It just shows up in ways we wouldn't think of, and probably all those emotions and what we think and how we feel and the attention and all of that just results in your back injuries, your knees, right? All of that it all plays a part.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd have to mirror that as well. What Tina said, basically what you're saying, that I've had 3 major injuries: my right knee, my right hip, and 2 thoracic vertebrae. And it was Wayne, Tina's husband, who told me that, oh, that's all to do with you set those up so that you could learn from them. And I remember looking at him going, "What the hell are you talking about? I didn't set up any of them." And I remember it was probably 3 months later when I suddenly, that thing came into my head and went, "Actually, that's correct." I was like, "Oh, okay, I get it now." And I realized that the knee and the hip are basically to do with my mother, because they're on the right side, and the thoracic spine injury that I got, the T4, T5, is in line with my heart chakra, because my heart was closed, or also became closed as a consequence of that. So when my heart chakra did finally open, it was like someone smashing me in the spine with a scaffold pole. It went straight the way through and came out probably 6 inches past. My ribs cracked, and that the person who was walking with me went, "Oh, what the hell was that?" And then I said, "Oh, it was my ribs," and she nearly vomited, because it did sound bad. And yeah, I concur and agree.
Yeah. I mean, there's another quite, well, a quote that I reference quite a lot. There's a lady called Candice Pert, who's a neuroscientist. She wrote the book Molecules of Emotion. And somewhere in that book, she says something along the lines of, our physical body is an outward manifestation of our mind. You know, so quite literally, we create our physical body with our mind. And, you know, some of the research that she did into the chemical, you know, she did research into the chemical changes that occur instantaneously whenever we have any thought or emotion. So, and, you know, this is very much the work that I do with my clients to enable them to kind of tap into the emotional roots of their pain. So I can continue my journey if
that'd be great.
Yeah, because another thing I realized as I was looking at this morning, and this is so strange because I'm always explaining this to clients, but yet I haven't fully applied it to myself until now. So there are many different interpretations of the chakra system. You know, Guy, there you mentioned the heart chakra, and the interpretation that I've found to be very true and relevant, you know, especially in terms of the clients that I've worked with, and even now, if I look back at my own life, is the fact that we have these 7-year cycles. So there are 7 major chakras, and in each 7-year period of our life, we come more under the influence of each chakra in sequence. So the first 7 years of our life, we're very much under the influence of the root chakra, because the root chakra is to do with safety and security and a sense of belonging. And, you know, when we first arrive on this planet, it can be pretty scary, and we're really reliant solely on others, our parents, our guardians, you know, to provide that safety and security for us. And, you know, we're reliant on those around us to give us that sense of belonging. As I said, you know, where I chose to start my story today was at the age of 13, or in my 14th year. And I had, so the second 7 years is to do with the sacral energy, which is to do with rhythm and flow. It's to do with how we manage our time, how we manage our energy, the level of creative agency we feel we have over our life. So, you know, is life happening to us or through us? And, you know, I think for most people, certainly in the Western world, those years between 7 and 14, our rhythm is severely disrupted, you know, by the school system, you know, it's the time in our lives where we get told when to do everything, when to get up, when to go to bed, when to have our dinner, when to come out of the playground, you know. So the ability to adopt one's own unique rhythm is can be quite disrupted. Also, I had, you know, a lot of disruption from, you know, the circumstances of my home life and the issues in my parents' marriage. So as I came into this junction now between the second and third chakra, so, you know, in the third chakra, at the solar plexus, we're entering this phase of really becoming in touch with our personal power, self-will, self-identity, and purpose. We're supposed to be really figuring out who we are, and, you know, this is when the ego starts to be really formed. And I was moving out of this very disrupted sacral phase into a phase where I didn't know who I was, and I'd kind of deliberately sabotaged who I was to fit in, you know, as I explained earlier. So it's no surprise I sustained that injury, I suppose. But this really, you know, I'm so grateful to it now, because this started my journey towards doing what I'm doing now. And at the age of 21, so another junction, you know, as we move from the solar plexus into the heart, I really started to follow my heart, and I started my career in fitness. And that went very well for those first 7 years. I kind of worked my way up the ladder. So I started as a fitness instructor. I became a gym manager. I became a club manager. But I realized towards the end of that phase that I wasn't following my heart anymore. It wasn't, being a manager wasn't what I wanted. I was kind of losing the connection to, you know, what made me passionate about fitness in the first place. And at the age of 28, it was kind of enforced, because I got sacked from the last employed job I had in the fitness industry. But I actually left the fitness industry for a year. I went into sales. It wasn't really me, but it was a very cutthroat industry that I entered. And it really taught me how to sell myself. And then a year later, I decided to go back into fitness on my own terms, and I kind of reinvented myself as a self-employed personal trainer. And within a very short space of time, I was achieving greater success than I ever had, as a working, employed within the industry. Now, I know guys looking forward to me discussing this part of my journey, but because I was really, I'm now in this communication phase, the phase of the throat chakra, and I'd learned sales, which is all about communication, and it was really working for me. And things probably for the first time in my life were really, really going well. And so at the age of 30, I was working in a gym in central London, and I had what I can only describe as a spiritual awakening. So I'll just explain this, and then obviously I'm sure that's going to lead to various questions. But what was happening was that in this gym there were some Shaolin monks, some Chinese monks that were renting the studio in the gym, and they were doing classes. They brought their own students in. It was all very kind of secretive. They used to stick posters over all the windows so you couldn't look in there and see what they were doing. And I got quite curious, and I spoke to the Shifu, the master, and he told me they were doing this Qigong practice, and maybe I should come and do a class. So they invited me into the class. I went into this first class, and I'd never seen anything like it. So the best way I can describe it is that this Shifu, this master, he would transmit his own energy into the participants, and they would start to go into spontaneous movement, quite extreme spontaneous movement in some cases. There'd be all kind of sounds coming out of them, screaming, laughing, crying, and it was really almost quite overwhelming in a way. And a lot of these people that he was working with, they'd been with him a long time. They were recovering drug addicts. They were people, that really had some deep challenges in their lives. But I couldn't really relax enough to really let myself go, to allow my body to go into this spontaneous movement. So I guess it was an intuitive sense that I had that I was supposed to work with this guy. So I said to him, I don't think the class situation works for me. Can I come and see you privately? So I ended up going around to his house. I'll try and keep this brief, but it's a pretty, it was an amazing experience for me at the time. So I was sat cross-legged on the floor in his living room. He was sat 6 feet away from me, cross-legged in front of me, and he literally just smiled. He didn't say a word. He smiled at me, and my body started to go into spontaneous movement, and it was really quite incredible. So very quickly, I learned probably one of the greatest skills that I've ever learned, really, that I apply even to this day, which is to become the observer of yourself. Because in this spontaneous state, you have no choice but to become the observer of yourself. So I was observing my body doing these movements. It started with a very gentle mobilization, systematically working through the major joints of my body. So I was mobilizing my neck, my shoulders. And then it went to more and more extreme movements, stretches that I wouldn't normally be able to do, like going into splits and all sorts of things. And the Shifu got up and just walked out of the room, shut the door, and left me in there. And it was so crazy. Even thinking about it now, it was really quite an incredible experience. The movements became more and more exaggerated. I actually, this is no exaggeration, I rearranged his whole living room. So I would, kick my foot out to one side, hook my foot under the sofa, pull the sofa out into the middle of the room. I literally rearranged all his furniture through this spontaneous movement. And, there was a part of me that was just amazed and, wanting to see what would happen next. And another part of me that was thinking, oh my God, what if he comes back in the room now? His whole living room's upside down. But I just let it go. I just let it continue, and it reached the crescendo, the energy, and then it kind of started coming down. And I without really thinking about how I was doing it, I put everything back where it had been, and I came back eventually into the cross-legged position, sitting exactly where I started, as though nothing had happened. And at that exact moment, he walked back in. And I don't know if you guys have had much experience with Chinese masters, but they always say the minimum that they need to say, you know. So he was a man of very few words. So he just said to me, "That was wild, wasn't it? And you need to ground yourself." And so he took me out in the garden. He made me lay down on the grass. It was a very sunny day. As soon as the sun hit me, I had a huge emotional release. So I've never experienced anything like this before, and I've read very similar accounts from people that have had near-death experiences, people that have had, you know, experiences through plant medicines. But it was as though I saw every experience in my entire life simultaneously flashing in front of me, like you know, the old-fashioned films, like the shutters. It was like I could see every single event of my life, including future events, simultaneously. And I also had every human emotion simultaneously as well. So laughing, crying, anger, ecstasy, you know, everything at the same time. And really amazing. But it didn't last very long. He said to me, "You've got some emotional work to do." And he made me hold on to this bush, this small tree, to ground myself. And that was it. And basically, I'm not even sure whether I went there again after that. I may have only had one session with him. It was 1 or 2 sessions. But what would happen after these sessions, or after at least this first session, was although the energy had come back down, I found that I was still in a spontaneous state. So whilst it was not kind of uncontrollable, it was as though I was operating from a higher place. So I knew exactly the right actions to take, the right words to speak. I can't really explain it. You know, I remember after this session, kind of reaching around to grab my coat off the back of the chair, reaching around to put my shoes on without, you know, I didn't have to look to see where they were. I just kind of reached out and slipped my feet into my shoes. He drove me to the station. I had a wad of cash in my back pocket because I'd been paid by a few of my PT clients that morning, and I had multiple, you know, different denominations of cash. So I had like 5s, 10s, 20s, and I reached into my pocket to pay him for the session, and I just pulled out exactly the right money. You know, it was so strange. And then he dropped me off at the side of the road. It was a very busy road, 6 lanes of traffic to get to the station to get back to work, and I was able to walk across that road without breaking my stride, without looking, just knowing the exact moment. And it was really weird, like a supreme sense of knowing, where I knew that I was safe. I knew that I was being kind of guided by, I guess, my higher self or my soul. And I would go back to work, and I'd be working with my PT clients, and I could actually feel in my body everything they were experiencing. And this is something that all of these things are just the things that I've developed to do what I'm doing now. Yeah, I didn't really understand what was happening to me. I did some inadvertent healings on some of my clients without really knowing what I was doing. It was exciting, but also quite scary at times. I was getting a lot of downloads of information. I was doing lots of automatic writing. I was drawing symbols, which subsequently I found had deeper meaning. I kept drawing a symbol which represents the third eye. My third eye was incredibly open. And yeah, it honestly was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. But what I realized very quickly is that I'm here to be a healer. As I said, I was doing these inadvertent healings, kind of feeling heat in my hands, being drawn to particular parts of people's, you know, my clients' bodies. And so I, you know, my journey after that was really working out how to harness this ability. So I'll pass it back to you guys, but yeah,
I remember
things in perspective.
I remember when you told me that, and when we were together, and as you were telling me it, my hands started to fizz, like the energy in both my hands. My thumb was vibrating. Well, my thumb on my right hand was vibrating, and my hands started to fizz, and that stayed like that for a good hour, and then that whole energy thing, it's almost like you unlocked something in my chi energy, because I can make that do that whenever I want now. Whereas before, I have had it before, and I've done a healing massage on someone who I actually burnt them. That they thought I was burning them because my hands were so hot after doing some qigong movements. But I can now make. So let's say I've got more control over it. I don't think I actually generate heat anymore, but I can. As I'm sitting there thinking about it now, or I'm not even really thinking about it, I've got my left hand is now. My left palm's vibrating, and my right palm's just. And now my fingers and my left hand are now vibrating, and my right hand's just catching up. So that's something that you did to me, just having a conversation.
Yeah, I mean that. So I can't claim to fully understand this, but what I believe happened with this Shifu, this Shaolin monk, is that part of it was that he transmitted his own energy into me. So and there's when someone with that level of power and training is able to do that, you're not just receiving the energy of that person, you're receiving everything from their whole lineage. So all the people in the lineage of the arts that he was adept in, you're receiving all of that energy. I mean, I found myself doing very complex martial arts forms that I don't ever remember learning. Really some incredible things happening. Now, there were positive and negative elements to this, so it's not something that should be played with. I've come to realize it's really important to understand these things. But if you have a good intention, which I believe I always have, I want to help people. I felt a strong connection with you, Guy, when I first met you, and so it's quite likely, I think, that by me relaying that story to you, there is also a transmission that occurs there.
I would totally agree with that, and I believe that in the Vedic tradition they call that transmission of energy a Shaktipat.
That's right.
It's a recognised phenomenon within the Vedic tradition.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, that certainly for me was part of my interpretation of what was happening to me. What the Shifu said to me was that I had entered an alpha brainwave state. Definitely there was a kind of change in my kind of perception of time. So when I was in this, which I've subsequently found out is what the Chinese call the Wu Wei state, or Wei Wu Wei, action without action, effortless action. So I was in this state where I was able to always choose the optimal action, the optimal response. And what enables this is a kind of ability to manipulate linear time. So it's the best way I can describe is it felt to me as though everything around me had slowed down, the whole world had slowed down. So that's why I was able to cross that busy road, without breaking my stride, because the whole world had slowed down, but my processing speed had accelerated. So I was able to almost be one step ahead of reality. That's the best way I can describe it. I've subsequently, more recently, in the research for my book, I've read a really amazing book, which I highly recommend, by Jill Bolte Taylor. So she's also a neuroscientist, and she did one of the first ever TED Talks, and she actually had a stroke. She had a stroke which dramatically injured the left side of her brain, the logical and analytical mind. So while she was severely disabled for a time, although she's completely back to normal, it took about 7 years for her to kind of rewire things to the extent she could live a pretty normal life. Now
number 7 again.
Sorry?
The number 7 again.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I'd never thought of that. So yeah, she
cropped up a lot.
Yeah, it does. It certainly does. So the book is called My Stroke of Insight, and what happened is, because her left brain was largely disabled, her right brain came fully online. And the right brain is the brain of unity consciousness. It's the brain of non-linear time. It's kind of tapping in more into our higher energies, if you like. And she had some quite profound experiences through that. She was in a kind of although she was disabled and unable to talk and unable to do a lot of her, a lot of the motor skills were affected. She was in a kind of a bliss state for quite a long time. And her description of that is very similar to the state, the way that I felt when I was in this kind of altered state. So I believe as well that it was my right brain really coming online. That was also a big part of that. So going on from there, about a year after that, I mean, it became, as I say, it was at times scary because I was very open energetically, and I would attract sometimes people with less positive intentions around me that also, had that ability to sense my openness. So I actually made the conscious decision to shut it down for a time. I wanted to kind of live a normal life again. And I just focused on my work. But then about a year after that experience, I came into some inheritance, and I, for a long time, wanted to take the CHEK training, the training that, myself and Wayne also did, the Wayne, the person that connected us all, an amazing person. So, we both became very inspired by Paul Chek, and I'd come across him probably 5 or 6 years before that, but I hadn't been able to afford to take the training. At that time, you had to do the higher level courses, you had to go to the States. You couldn't do it in the UK. So I came into this money, and I just decided to close down my business, a successful personal training business, and go over and take these various qualifications. I knew I was supposed to be doing healing work, so I also went and did a neuromuscular therapy qualification out there, because I felt that it was difficult to explain to my clients what I was doing. And so if I built a structure around it, that might make it a little bit more credible or easier to explain. So I went out to the States. I did the neuromuscular therapy training. I did my second 2 levels of the CHEK training. I'd done the preliminary level in the UK because you could do that by that time. And then I did the first 2 levels of the HLC, the holistic lifestyle coaching training out there as well. I was out there for on and off. I'd spend about 3 months out there, taking courses and traveling. And then I'd come back for a few months and then go back again for a few months. And I probably did that for about a year. I did another training out there in something called IMT, integrative manual therapy, which is I only learned a couple of the modules of this. It's a whole diploma. It's a kind of degree level course, but I did a couple of modules which really taught me how to scan the body and feel for discordant energy and feel for disruptions in the normal flow of energy in the body. So that was really amazing. And after that year, I came back. I opened my own studio in London. A couple of years after, and I started working on people. I suppose that's when I really started creating my system, although it wasn't really a system. And a couple of years after that, I stumbled across something called core therapy, KORE. It was developed by someone a guy who spent 11 years in the Far East, so in China, Japan, and Korea, became a doctor of Chinese medicine, and developed this whole system which incorporates both Western and Eastern philosophies. And part of that system was kinesiology, so manual muscle testing. And I just loved it. I was fascinated by it. I found it amazing how you could detect weaknesses in the body, perform a correction and then you could have an instantaneous effect, that you could instantly make a weak muscle strong, which I found to be really powerful. I think it's really powerful with clients because they can see something changing instantaneously. It's very demonstrable. So I was fascinated by kinesiology, and I just made it my business to get every single book I could on kinesiology, and I kind of taught myself, really. I took lots of different influences from different places, and I suppose, yeah, really, probably this was around 2008. So about 35 or so. I started to really create my own modality. And it was really by following the philosophy of Bruce Lee, you know, to absorb what is useful, to discard what is not, and to create something uniquely your own. And that's kind of what I've tried to do. And I suppose if we think about the chakras here, you know, 35, we're moving into the influence of the third eye. And during this phase, I realized that, you know, I also had the ability to assess my clients remotely. I kind of stumbled upon that by accident as well. I would be in the gym, observing people doing exercises. I'd see, you know, in the past, I'd always, you know, as a personal trainer, you approach people to give people advice if you see them doing something that's, you know, maybe not helping them. And that's how I got a lot of my clients. And I kind of started playing with that idea and kind of hypothesizing, okay, this person's struggling with this exercise. What's going on physically? And I would run the manual muscle tests in my own mind and through my own body, because I had the ability to kind of sense things in my own body relating to other people. And I would run the tests and kind of be able to internally douse the answers. And then I would approach, you know, the potential client and say, look, I hope you don't mind. I observe you doing that exercise. Can I just show you a couple of things that might help? And I'd lay them down on the floor, do a couple of muscle tests, make the corrections, and then they go back and do the exercise. And it was, you know, much more efficient, much more effective. So at that time, because I kind of was developing this ability to sense things remotely with people, you know, without physically touching them, I came up with the name SEER therapy. It's an acronym SEER, which is you know, to see within, and it stands for structural and emotional energetic realignment. But then shortly after that, I had a client who had a really profound result through working with me. And, you know, not everyone does. I mean, it really depends on how ready you are for this work. And that's for any healing modality. But this client was really ready. She was really ready for change. And she said to me after the session, it's as though you press the reset button for my body and mind. And I just thought, wow, I love that. I love that. This word kept going around in my head, reset, reset. And I realized that it was the same letters, the SEER, but in a different order. But it had the letter T in there as well. And she then wrote me a testimonial where she said something along the lines of, I couldn't believe after my first session how much my life transformed. And I just thought, okay, that's the T, the transformation. So that's how I came up with the name, the reset method, which is realigning emotions and structure for energetic transformation. And it's just something that I've been evolving ever since, really. Over to you guys.
I mean, Peter, that is so amazing, because there's a lot that I've learned in the past that is, you just connected everything together. And you're right, people have to be open to it. It's a belief system, and our belief system will give us our life and give us everything and how we see the world. So you're right, they have to be open and ready for it. And it seems to me, just tell me if I'm wrong, that it's all about being in the present moment for you, like really super, like not like here I can feel my legs, and I mean you're like integrating it through your body and through like universal energy. It's quite, I mean, that's how I'm seeing it. It's quite amazing. So yeah,
thank
it is
you.
transformation for sure.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Yeah, I mean, obviously this is, you know, we're all a work in progress, and I'm still trying to master many of these things. I'm you know, I guess when I work with clients, I'm able to, so the experiences I had after that spiritual awakening, you know, were extremely profound. The effects did over time lessen. So I don't ever go into that really, you know, that the full kind of way, you know, state of supreme knowing. I don't really go into that very often, but the time when I get closest to it is when I'm working with clients. So I find it, you know, because I believe I'm doing the work that I came here to do, you know, I'm able to kind of step to one side of myself and channel that work. And, you know, when I'm working with people, I'm very much able to be present. I think in my own daily life, as I said, it's still a work in progress. As I think it is for all of us. But I do agree, it's absolutely to do with that.
Yeah, and we all are. To the day we pass, we're going to always be a work in progress. There's always stuff to improve, stuff to learn, people to meet. I'm all about meeting new people. We learn from each other all the time.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think we're all part of a greater whole. We all emanated from the same source. We're all made of the same source material. So we're all connected. And I like my greatest mentor, Paul Chek. There's many people that say this, but he talks about this quite a lot. That if you believe in a higher power or God or the universe or source energy, whatever you want to call that, there's something that created us, which we are all an expression of. And, God or source or the universe is also evolving through us, so, as we evolve, as we heal ourselves, as we become more connected with ourselves and each other, we essentially allow God or, the source to also evolve. That's, Paul Chek would say, we are, the only way God can know itself is to experience itself through us, through a kind of, in this world of duality, because if you're in a kind of unity consciousness, you're everything and nothing simultaneously. So you cannot really know yourself. This idea of us all being connected, it kind of led me, when I realized I could assess people remotely, I started playing with the idea of also treating people remotely. And I actually had another client who, again, a lot of these discoveries kind of really happened by accident. So I had another client who came over from Canada and on holiday. I didn't know her. She was a friend of one of my existing clients, and this friend introduced this lady to me. She was really struggling in many areas of her life. She had various physical ailments. She was very depressed. She was not working at the time, really, really struggling. And I did a couple of sessions with her in person. We got some incredible results. She left kind of hopping and skipping out of the room, after our last session. And she was due to fly back to Canada. And she said, "This is amazing. I feel like I'm ready to start my whole life again. I feel like I'm 21 again." I think she was in her mid-30s at the time. And it was great. And then about 3 days after she landed back at home, she called me up and she said, "Peter, I don't know what I've done. I've destroyed all of your hard work." And what had happened was she'd fallen down the stairs. She twisted her ankle. It sent her spiraling into a depression again. And she called me up in kind of despair, like, what do I do? And I just felt, it broke my heart. I just felt, I really want to help here, but I can't be with her. So I've been reading about this idea of remote healing. I understand the principles of quantum physics, the law of entanglement, the fact that, if you separate two particles that are once connected, if you do anything to influence one of those particles, it will instantaneously influence the other one. And because, as I said earlier, we are all from the same source, we're made of the same source material, we're essentially part of a greater whole, I didn't see any reason why it wouldn't work. So I said, look, let's just try this. And it was the first time I ever attempted to do it. I'm not sure how long ago this was. This was probably, I would imagine, maybe about 8 years ago. So I was entering into the crown chakra. So coming out of this intuition phase into this phase of the connection with source. We just tried. I just said, look, let's give it a go. And we did the session. And halfway through the session, as I was talking to her, she said, "Peter, please stop talking just one moment. I'm looking at my ankle and I can see the swelling going down in front of my eyes." And I mean, it blew me away as well. But it made me realize, wow, this stuff really, really works. And since then, I've been developing that more and more. I've got clients in Australia, in America, various parts of the world. So you know, the power of non-local connection is real. It really works. And again, as you said, Tina, it just comes down to belief, you know, just believing that anything's possible. I think Wayne Dyer, the late Wayne Dyer, he said, I am realistic. I believe in miracles or something like that. And that's really the attitude with which I approach my work. You know, I believe it's realistic to, that's it. He said, I am realistic. I expect miracles, you know, and really that's kind of the mentality that I go into every session with.
I think for myself, I've experienced a lot of things with an open mind. So I when I first got into all of this stuff, I can't say I didn't believe in it, but it's like, it may be true, but it's not going to be right for me. It won't work for me, because why would it? Mm. And so whenever anything works, it's always not. I mean, as time's gone on, I've become more believing. But I started out with literally saying, okay, well, let's just approach this with an open mind. And so in that sense, you don't even necessarily have to believe in it. You just have to not have all those negative blocks that are, oh, this is a load of old rubbish. This ain't going to work. Why would it work? It's rubbish. And I don't know if you've ever read The Field, Lynne McTaggart's book. The Field.
I can tell you a story about that. But yeah.
But do you remember the story she's saying about the guy who had terminal cancer, and no matter what they did to help him, he kept slowly but surely dying, because he literally, the only time his family ever treated him nicely was when he got his stage 4 diagnosis. And all of a sudden, everyone's running around looking after him. So he actually identified himself with his disease because he was getting what he actually wanted out of life by dying. So, you know, I think there are a lot of people. I know several people like that who didn't matter whether it would work or not, they'll make sure it didn't, because they want to stay in the same rut they're in now, because they're comfortable with it. Anything more than that would require a level of greater input in their life, which they don't want to do, because it's much easier to just sit in the mud and cry about it.
That's such a good point, Guy. I mean, it's our needs and what we didn't get as a child, and we're bringing it forward. Like for me, mine was attention. I didn't get attention from my father because I was young, and I had to play sports in order to get attention from my father. So fast forward in my early 20s, that's all I wanted was attention. If I didn't get it, I'd go seek it elsewhere. And that's that pain of not getting attention from my father. And I mean, at my age now, I observe it. I know that's part of me on getting this type of attention. So as long as we're observing our actions, we can be more open to healing. But like you said, Guy, that's just what they need, and that's what they've been seeking, and they're getting it finally. Yeah, they're going to keep on that path. But we have to discern, is this healthy for us, or is it not healthy for us? Is this something we want, or do we want to live on with our life in a different way? And we have choice.
Yeah, I think that for myself anyway, I didn't have a choice. I got to a point in my life where I was so stuck that no matter how fast I ran, I was getting absolutely nowhere. And I was taking like 100 steps forward, and then that one step back was taking me right back to the beginning. So I had to make a change, and it's been profound ever since. Absolutely profound. There are external changes. So the quality of my life has improved, but it's internally for myself. The lack of anxiety, which I didn't even know I had. I was so out of touch with what and who I am, that I didn't even know I had anxiety. Didn't even know I had fear, because all I really had was anger and resentment.
And Peter, it's something like you were saying before, that connection, right? The emotional part of us, and connecting to our emotions and our ailments, which shows up for us physically.
Yeah. Like as I said before, you know, the physical body is an outward manifestation of the mind. And you know, when we experience trauma, if we're unable to fully process that, you know, it gets stored in the tissues of our body, and you know, that part of us almost gets frozen in time. And that's a lot of the work I do, is to help uncover that, is to help, you know, find the root of these beliefs, you know, to find out where they originate. I mean, what Guy said just now, firstly about, you know, not necessarily believing that, you know, he could access the power within him, but subsequently, you know, realizing that he could, you know, that goes back to our deepest fear not being that we are inadequate, but that we are powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that frightens us, you know, and we're playing sport small by not serving the world. You know, but even myself, I can relate to as well what Guy was saying there, where, you know, sometimes there's an emotional currency attached to our, you know, our illness, if you like, or our sickness or our disability, whatever that is, you know. So for me, as I said at the beginning, you know, in my mistaken belief, you know, by me injuring myself, I believed that I would be able to have a better relationship with my father and to help my father to feel better about himself, you know. And so as long as you hold a belief like that, even if you think that you want to heal, you're probably going to block yourself from that healing. So the work that I do is very much about tapping into people's unconscious mind, you know, which is really 90% or more of the deal. You know, the conscious mind is only a very small part of our mental faculty. So, you know, it's really to be able to uncover these beliefs that really don't serve us and are kind of holding us back from fully expressing, you know, what we're capable of. I mean, as I said, you know, this, you know, when I had this realization that I could do the healing remotely, this was as I entered the crown chakra phase, the 7th, you know, block of 7 years. And as I moved out of that phase, so the theory is that we go through these 7 phases up to the age of 49, roughly 50. Some people call that the Saturn return. You know, it's really where we, you know, we've been on the hero's journey. You know, so we've you know, we've gone through all the archetypes, the warrior, you know, the king or queen, you know, the wise man, the wise woman, and we now get to the stage where it's almost like if we were in a tribe, it would be like the tribal elder or the grandparent kind of role, where now, if assuming our development's been as it should be, which for most people it obviously won't be entirely, but now we're in a position where we can impart our knowledge and wisdom back on those coming up on that journey. So, you know, when I got to 49, well, actually leading up to that, so a few years ago, I'm 50, almost 50, I'll be 51 in a couple of weeks. So when I got to, yeah, leading up to my 49th year, obviously we went through pandemic experience, which, as for many people, triggered even kind of more of a spiritual awakening in terms of, you know, really starting to get an appreciation of what's really going on in the world. I know not everyone became aware of that, but a lot of people did. And as I entered into this, you know, this recycling phase of going back through the chakras. So now, you know, as a 50-year-old man, you know, part of my role is to help those that are, you know, still dealing with issues of safety and security and a sense of belonging, still dealing with issues of rhythm and flow, still dealing with issues around personal power and self-will, self-identity and purpose, you know, still dealing with issues of the heart, still dealing with issues of communication, still dealing with, you know, a difficulty in accessing the tuition from it within the intuition, and, you know, still struggling to connect to source. So at this time, around this time, I think I was, yeah, probably coming up to maybe 48. So in my 49th year, I had an inspiration for the book that we mentioned at the beginning, which I'm still trying to write. But the intention for this book is really to, because I know not everyone can see me in person, so it's really to you know, be able to help people with these challenges, you know, to empower them to kind of, through self-exploration, to do this for themselves. There's there's a method of self-inquiry which you might have heard of. It's called The Work. It was developed by Byron Katie. I don't know if you've heard of that. So she has these 4 questions, and I hope I can remember this correctly. So if we are ever struggling in life or struggling to make a decision, or we're at a crossroads, she says, the first question you should ask yourself is this really true? Okay, because some of these beliefs we hold, they're not really true. And a lot of times, you only need to ask yourself that first question, and it snaps you back into reality. But then the second question is to say, can I be absolutely sure that this is really true? Again, almost every question that we could ask ourselves, we can't be absolutely sure, whether it's true or not. So, a belief is a closed system. It stops you from, being creative and, finding your own solutions. If you have a belief, like following a religion, it's a structure. Whereas if we're able to access our right brain, it's very much unstructured. It's the ability to be creative, from that place of kind of connection and unity consciousness. I've lost my train of thought there, but obviously not using my brain properly. But yeah, I can't remember what I was trying to say there.
You're going through the questions. There's 4 questions.
Yeah, the questions. That's right. Yeah. 4 questions. Yeah, 4 questions. So a lot of times I only get to that second question. That's probably quite. I can't remember the other 2. So the third question. So is it true? Is it really true? Can I be absolutely sure it's really true? The third question is, who would I be without the thought or the belief? Because who we are without the thought and belief is our true self. It's who we really are. The beliefs are kind of like our programming in a way. Certainly through the pandemic years, that was something that really scared me, was to see how programmed so many people are and how unquestioning people are. They just accept whatever they're told. And that's really what I seek to do with my work, is to help people to access their inner authority rather than feeling that they have to rely on external authority. So the third question, is who would I be without the thought? And the fourth question, I actually can't remember, but it's I know at the end of it,
we'll look it up.
Yeah, she asks you to turn the thought around. So to literally find the polar opposite to that thought, and to turn it around. So I kind of use a kind of similar kind of system with my clients.
Well, that's really powerful in itself, though, asking questions to have us think and stop and go, oh, it is a belief system. And am I willing to let that go or not? Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Another quote that I really love, which actually I used to think it was Bruce Lee that said this, but actually it was, I used to listen to, which I highly recommend actually, I used to listen to the Bruce Lee podcast. So it ran for a few years. I think all the episodes are still available, and it was run by his daughter Shannon Lee, and then another lady called Sharon Lee, who's no relation, but she was the CEO of the Bruce Lee Foundation, and they were talking about some of Bruce Lee's philosophy about finding your purpose and what have you. And he has some very profound quotes around that. But she said, our main purpose is to become our true self. And, I kind of like to flip that a little bit and say, our main purpose is to allow our true self to come into being, because who we really are has always been with us. And if we can envision the best version of ourselves, leading the best version of our life possible, that's the real, that's who we really are. That's more who we are than who we experience on a day-to-day basis when we're not in that place. So what I say to a lot of my clients is, if you're in a difficult situation, if you're struggling to make a decision or decide which way to go, just ask yourself, if I was the best version of myself, living the best version of my life, what would I do on that basis? Or another way to ask that question is, what would love do now? So if I truly love myself and I love my life, what would I do on that basis?
That's very powerful, because that's the path I'm on right now.
Wow.
And that's exactly what I'm doing with the self-love a YouTube channel. Definitely what I'm up to. So yeah, I needed to hear that. Thank you, Peter.
Oh, no, no problem. No problem.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. So it's some of that stuff I'm gonna have to steal for myself, I think.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter, for giving us your wisdom, your amazing story. This is really great. And can you share with us where people can find you?
Sure. Yeah. So I have a website, that's peterstrange.co.uk. So there's an inquiry page on there. So you can just send me an inquiry. I'm always happy to speak with people. Like I do a free initial consultation. I think it's really important just to, connect with someone and see whether it's a good fit from both sides. So, there's no obligation to that. So if people want to just have a chat with me and, talk about ways in which I may be able to help them, just go onto that website, peterstrange.co.uk, fill out an inquiry, and I'll come back to you. I'm not that active on social media, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, I think that may change as hopefully I get this book done, and then I envisage a course coming out of this book, because I really want people, that can't see me to be able to apply these principles to themselves. So that's something to look out for. I am on Facebook. I mean, during the pandemic, I went on Facebook. I did a Facebook Live every single week for about a year and a half, which was a healing for the collective consciousness. And I had about 300 or so people following me at one stage with that. That was really quite incredible, actually, because what I did is I used my intuition to determine whether, I kind of internally doubted, is this something that can work? And, because as I said, we're all connected, and we're all, there's something called the morphic field, that the Rupert Sheldrake idea, the fact that, there's a kind of divine blueprint for what it is to be a human, so we're all, that's how all of us were created. And I envisage it almost like as though we're each a cell in the body of God. So if you think of a collective body that represents all of us, then we can actually heal collectively through addressing, the imbalances there. So that's what I used to do every week. I'd go online and I'd do a reading for the collective consciousness. And I used to get people reaching out to me and saying, wow, I listened to your reading, and my back doesn't hurt anymore, or I feel so positive. So I do also do some small group work, which is similar to that. Occasionally I still put out those readings. I actually did one for today, interestingly, a very quick one, which I can share with you if you want. It's very, very quick, probably take about a minute to explain. But this is just a sort of this is my interpretation of where we're at as a collective right now. So there were three main things that showed up in this kind of collective body mind. One which is related to a point which is just behind the crown chakra. I have this amazing book actually called The Spiritual Portraits of the Energy Release Point. So it basically tells you the meanings behind every single acupuncture point. And I'd love to put that on an app one day, because it's a quite incredible thing. But basically, this point behind the head, the disharmonies that create an issue here are anger, discontent, stagnation, withdrawal, feelings of imminent crisis and fracture. And if you look at what's going on in the world today, it's not surprising that that's affecting the collective. But it goes on to say that this energy release point connects us to energy which serves to harmonize consciousness, so that there can be flexibility and receptivity. We unblock and activate this point. It allows for the expression of emotion so that discordant energy can be diffused. It promotes clear communication, which is emotionally balanced, so that ideas can be nourished. It promotes strategy for harmonious living, enriching feelings of contentment that one has spoken, has been listened to, and is now calm. And in this state, life goals and plans can forge ahead in a renewed, harmonious state, and a sense of peace and order is restored. So I was picking that up for the collective. I can do the correction on that now as we speak. And there were two other things which came up, which I find quite interesting, because you mentioned one of these earlier, Guy, which is a T5. You said about T5. So in the thoracic spine, right behind the heart. So that, to my interpretation, if you look at all the vertebrae that sit within the region of the heart chakra, most of them correspond to muscle actions which involve either pushing or pulling. Pushing is about saying no, setting healthy boundaries. Pulling is about saying yes to things, embracing life, embracing things, including things in your energy. And this T5 is quite interesting because it relates to both pushing and pulling. So it's a question around how open do we want our hearts to be? How vulnerable are we prepared to be? How much do we want to say yes and how much do we still want to say no? And kind of really understanding that, and then the remaining, well, there's actually two more things, the T9 as well, which is about the ability to draw on our inner resources. That's coming from that's in the region of the solar plexus. But actually, as I'm speaking, I do the corrections on these because I believe this influences us collectively. And even if you watch this recording after the time when it was recorded, the energy transmission will still be present. You will still receive that transmission. So I'm doing the T9 now. And then the final thing, which is quite interesting, I don't see this very often, but it's just something that's affecting us collectively emotionally, but it doesn't relate to any particular part of the body. It's just a general sense. And it's when I find these imbalances that have been driven emotionally, I muscle test through the alphabet and I try and get a word or a phrase, so I just ask, is the first letter A, B, C, D? So they get a yes, and then the second letter and so on. And the word I had it was just the word faith. So I just think right now, these are difficult times that many people are going through, many people in the world are going through, and we just really need to have faith that there is a plan and a purpose. Everything happens for a reason, like we described with Guy and myself and yourself, Tina, like, all of the events of our lives, we look back, our greatest gifts arose from our greatest challenges, so if we expand that out onto the world stage, the world is going through a lot of challenges at the moment, but they're all purposeful. It's to awaken us, I believe. So have faith. So.
Yeah, I think if you stop watching the news and just listen to the now, what's happening now. So when you watch the news, it's all scary. Everything's going to be horrible, and we're all going to die in flames. But if you sit down and just what's happening now. And I'm reminded of I don't know if you're aware of the comedian Bill Hicks, but he said he did a thing about he said, I'm addicted to the show Cops. He said, I'm watching that show and they're busting people and there's guns and there's scary. And then I look out the window and it's just me and the tumbleweed. And I'm thinking to myself, are they making that shit up?
Yeah.
And I think, so I think that basically where we are in the world now, there are some terrible things occurring and there's always terrible things occurring.
Yeah.
But are they occurring to you right now?
I think that's a great philosophy. I think, to sort of tie this up, I think we create our perception of reality with our thoughts, words, and actions, or lack of, so everything we've experienced on a bigger stage is a product of our thoughts, words, and actions, or lack of, our acquiescence, our, just allowing things to exist in the way they are without questioning it. And, obviously, if there are people in authority, to get to a position of authority, to get to a position that, some of the most powerful people in the world are in, you need to have an unshakable self-will. No matter what else you might think about those people, they have an unshakable self-will that's got them to where they are. So what we have to remember is that, we each have our individual reality, and then there's collective reality, and collective reality is influenced by the strongest minds. So that's why it's so important that we, work on our own, personal power, self-will, self-identity, and purpose. You really get, in touch with that, so that we can express what we came to do uniquely. There's only one of us, and there'll never be another. And the more of us that do that, it will start to swing the pendulum the other way. So, because really, a lot of these people that kind of have on outward appearances a very strong mind and will to achieve. It's very two-dimensional. If you actually strip that back, a lot of these people are quite damaged. So if we can build ourselves from the ground up, so by working through these chakras, which is what I seek to do with my clients, it's it's really unlimited what we can achieve.
Amazing. We can end it there.
Yeah.